Welcome to Secret Story, Part 2, What Next Thomas. As you know, several months ago I changed bridge partners to play in mixed doubles tournaments and earn more Emerald Master points. But I never told you anything about my new partner. Well, my new partner is Robert Raymond. I know you really dislike Robert, so I never told you he was my new partner because I felt you might forbid me from playing bridge with him. Robert is a great bridge player, and I wanted him as my new partner. I said nothing but sat up, being more serious, listening to her words and their meaning. Elle continued. Over the past months, we have played in local bridge club events and practiced learning each other's styles and to develop our team style. We felt we were good enough and had strong team chemistry to win, so we went to our first major tournament in Palm Beach. On our trip, Robert and I played excellent bridge, and as you know, we came in second. We were proud of second place since it was our first tournament. As you would expect, Robert and I spent all our time together during the trip. We ate all our meals together, practiced, and just hung out. Our rooms were separate, and we never shared one or the other. We danced a few nights to break the competitive tension, but things went a little further than was appropriate. By the third night, Thomas, I missed you so much, and I was so horny that as I dress it. The night progressed and the drinks flowed. Suddenly we were all over each other. I could feel Robert's excitement as he pulled me tight against him, grinding on me. I just couldn't stop him. I knew I had to leave before things went too far, so I told Robert the first had to go. Walking out of the club back to the hotel, Robert held my hand. Once we were back at the hotel, I realized Robert was leading me to his room. At the elevator, I stopped and kissed him on the cheek and stopped things right there. Robert, we cannot do this. I am married, and I love my husband. I cannot cheat on him. Thomas, the next day we came home, and I returned to you, loving you even more and knowing my love for you was forever strong. Over the past 3 weeks, Robert and I had 3 bridge club sessions. Thomas, I lied to you when I told you there were 4. The first 2 were our normal bridge games. Each night after the game, Robert and I went out for a drink, and I came home a little later than normal. I am ashamed to say that each of those nights we ended up making out in Robert's car. I never let him touch me under my clothes. Elle's story was making me very uneasy. I wondered if she had already given in and had cheated on me. Though I will admit, I did fantasize about Robert on those nights. Thomas, the third night there was a bridge club party that I could have invited you to, but Robert asked me to go with him, so I did. I am sorry for lying to you and not taking you. That night we went to the party, then we left early to go dancing. The night was dangerous for us. Robert had been weakening my defenses with his texts and emails over the last several days. That night Robert took me dancing at a small private club. It was very intimate, so very quickly my resolve melted away. I am ashamed to admit it, but we looked like lovers dancing that night, kissing passionately, and our hands were everywhere. Once again, my love for you won out, and I came to my senses. I went to the ladies' room and called an Uber. I waited and snuck out before Robert could stop me and come home to you. That night, Thomas, you remember we didn't sleep. It was so beautiful that I never wanted our passion to stop. The 4th night was a week ago, when you and Roy went fishing in Savannah for 2 days. Robert invited me out that Saturday night. I knew it was wrong of me to go, but for some reason, I really wanted to go. That night I had decided was when I was ending things with Robert. Thomas, my one concern was that you were away and would not be here for me when I came home. That worried me. I knew I needed to continue to be firm with Robert, making this the last night we would ever go out. I didn't think it was a problem. I knew I was strong enough to keep control so that nothing would happen. We were supposed to be going to dinner and dancing. I knew we had to be careful so none of our friends saw us. So maybe he was taking me back to the club we went to the week before. Robert texted me Saturday morning that I needed to dress nicely, and he was picking me up at 4 p.m. I thought it was a little early for a dinner date, but he told me he had a surprise. I spent the early afternoon getting ready. I soaked in a bubble bath and shaved my whole body. I dried and rubbed body oil all over me so that I smelled sweet. I added the black thigh-high, seamed, stocking with the little black bows you like. I picked the blue satin dress that I bought for the Christmas party. I put my makeup on and felt radiant. When I saw the black town car sitting outside, I was shocked. Once in the car, I told Robert about my concern about any of our friends seeing us. He assured me that where we were going, no one we knew would see us. I didn't understand why he was so sure until we drove to the private airport. Sitting there was a shiny black helicopter. I looked at him aghast. Robert, where are we going? It's a surprise, but we will have a wonderful time. Robert said as he took my hand, and we boarded the helicopter. As it turned out, we were on an hour's flight to Atlanta. You know, Thomas, I had never done anything like this. It was like I was a queen. I realized while we were in the helicopter that this was Robert's full press to seduce me. The realization was extremely exciting but also genuinely concerning. My body was pulling me in one direction while my mind was building a defense and pulling the other way. Thomas, I fought hard to ensure I didn't make a huge mistake with Robert and destroy us. But it was so hard, and gradually, I realized that every move he had planned was to break down my defenses, and it was all working. I was slowly losing control. During the flight, I was like a kid on a carnival ride gawking out at the scenery. It was spectacular. I was overwhelmed at the moment. We drank Cristal champagne, toasting a spectacular evening. If this were an evening preview, it would be special, just as Robert planned. It was all extremely exciting. When we landed, a black stretch limo was waiting for us. Wow, I was impressed. There was more Cristal in the limo, and Robert started to make his move. It was not anything we had not done before. Kissing, I fought off his advances as best I could, without ruining the whole evening. As I listened to Elle, my heart was beating wildly, and my jealousy and anger were mounting. It made me sick that that man could be Robert Raymond. The more I heard, the more I began to believe Elle was telling me the truth. I could see the concern on her face, worried about how I was taking in what she was telling me, as I stayed stoic, not responding in any way. I have to be honest, Thomas, I am a woman, and Robert's pampering was all for me. I was extremely excited and becoming more turned on by the minute. We rode through the traffic, and Robert told me, Elle, you are a beautiful, amazing woman, a good friend, a great attorney, and a great bridge partner. I feel like I am falling in love with you. I was shocked at Robert's confession, was put it mildly. How could I react to his words? What should I say? I looked into his eyes, they were full of love, lust, and aggression. That scared me because my reaction was wrong. I started to say, I am married, but what came out of my mouth was, I really like you too, Robert. Boy, that was the wrong thing to say, opening the door when I needed to slam it shut. Then Robert leaned in and kissed me softly at first, but then he pressed forward. And soon we kissed passionately. I accepted his kiss. I didn't stop him. I was losing ground fast. Thank God the spell was broken when we arrived at the restaurant, or to be honest, I am not sure what would have happened. We were sitting in front of New York Prime. The driver opened the door, and I stepped out. We walked in and were greeted by Manuel, the maitre d'. Robert had reserved a private dining room for a romantic dinner at this impressive 5-star restaurant. We were having a marvelous dinner with more Cristal champagne. I knew he was putting on the hard press now, and I was feeling the alcohol a little more than I wanted to. Robert was starting to work his magic. I knew I needed to regroup. So I excused myself to the ladies' room. As I walked, I knew I had to regain my composure. Inside, I had a strong talk with myself telling me, Elle, you are a married woman, you should not be here, to begin with, so you must be strong, or your life will be destroyed. I stared at myself, taking a deep breath. As I stood there rebuilding my courage, an older woman emerged from a stall. She fixed her makeup, and as she turned to leave, she gripped my arm and looked me in the eye. "If you love your husband, do not cheat on him. Go home and love him." I didn't do that, and it destroyed us both. She told me with a sad smile. It was like my fairy godmother was watching over me. Her words shocked me. I looked down at her. "Thank you, I needed that." I pulled her to me, hugged her, and made my resolve not to give in and come home to you. As I walked back to Robert, I knew it wasn't quite as simple as that. I just couldn't walk out and catch a cab and go home. I said to myself, "Elle, you love Thomas and don't want to do anything that could wreck your marriage or hurt the man you love. You have to be strong." I arrived back at the table. Robert politely stood as I sat down. As we looked at each other, I was thinking about how I could get out of this situation. I was 100 miles from home, with no way to return except with Robert. I was in trouble. The meal was excellent. I stopped drinking the champagne and felt more in control by the time we finished. I knew Elle loved me but had gotten herself into something she never really expected, but she was naive not to realize a man like Robert would come after her as a male challenge. I was proud of how she was holding up. "Thomas," we left the restaurant and walked through Buckhead to the Sanctuary nightclub for dancing. It was a Latin dance club, so sultry Latin dances were the thing of the night. We danced and drank, and as the evening went on, Robert became more aggressive and flirtier. He wanted me, but I fought hard despite losing the small battles. From the minute we walked into the club, the music was pounding. Couples were dancing seductively. Robert had not touched me except by holding my hand and pulling me through the crowd to the back of the club. There was a VIP section, and Robert had reserved a table there. We sat at a table in a raised area overlooking the dance floor. A bucket of iced and a bottle of Cristal arrived and was poured by a stunning, young, Latino woman. Robert couldn't take his eyes off her. But before I could get my head straight, Robert pulled me out of my seat and onto the dance floor. A slow song was playing, so Robert pulled me tight to him, and suddenly, we meshed together, my eyes closed, and for a while, I felt like I was in your arms, rubbing against you. But as things progressed, I knew it wasn't you, it was Robert. I tried holding him off but was scared I would not be strong tonight. Elle's words concerned me. I was getting extremely nervous as I listened to more of her story. She was putting up a good fight, but I was worried she would lose out on Robert's advances. "Thomas," my body started quivering. I knew Robert could feel it. I was sure Robert could smell me too. My hot, Jesus, Thomas, this was only our first dance. I knew I was in trouble, but what could I do? The next dance was a salsa. I quickly excused myself and ran off to the ladies' room. I went into a stall and tried to gather myself. I collapsed back with my eyes closed. Breathing hard. I tried to come back down by slowing my breathing. As I recovered, a shaky voice in the next booth cooed. I was shocked. My God, someone heard me. I flushed with embarrassment. Jesus, the offer was tempting, but I said nothing. I stood, straightened my clothes, and quickly left. I didn't wash my hand, I might need to use my fingers again later. As I walked up to the table, Robert quickly pulled me back onto the dance floor, and we danced through several songs, grinding on each other. As it was, I tried hard to make Robert understand that I was not his lover for the night or any night, by building my resolve for me not to be. I could not allow that to happen, or I would destroy me. You, Thomas, and our marriage. The night moved along quickly. It was near midnight, and I was extremely nervous about what was coming next. I looked at Robert, his eyes were on fire. Robert thought it was his, but it wasn't, and I knew I could never give it to him. After we sat listening to songs, watching other couples, and drinking Cristal, I went to the restroom again to take a breather. When I returned to the table, I took the lead and pulled Robert onto the dance floor. He pulled me tight. But no, I boned up and whispered, Robert, I have had a wonderful time, but this has to be the last dance. I have to go home tonight. Robert looked at me, Elle, tomorrow morning, we go home. Tonight is for us together that we have wanted all along. No, Robert, I am married, and the man I love and want, is in Savannah right now, sleeping in a tent after a day of fishing. You have to take me home. I stated firmly, pulling back away from him. I looked Robert in the eye. Tonight was supposed to be dinner with dancing in Macon, not Atlanta. This has been a wonderful adventure and I thank you for tonight, but we will not be going to bed together tonight or ever. I looked at Elle, wondering where this was going. Did Elle really feel about Robert as she described, and what about me? I was doubtful that things were as Elle had described them. It had to be more complicated than that. But I continued to listen. Thomas, the look on Robert's face changed as he gave me his one last kiss. I took his hand and pulled him to the table. We paid the bill, and I led Robert out of the club. The limo was waiting outside. We got in, and Robert looked at me, wounded by my rejection. I looked back at him, and my lust began to surface again. I felt badly that Robert had gone to all this effort, spent a lot of good money, and given me an unbelievable night to remember, but in the end, he was getting nothing from me. So, I decided to give Robert something in return for a wonderful night. I leaned over and pulled Robert to me. I gasped, Jesus, Robert, but I am married. I can't do that to Thomas. I pushed him away and slid back across the seat. Oh Robert, Jesus, you must stop. I just can't cheat on my husband. There was a touch of ire in my voice. I was shocked at Elle's description of her desire for Robert at that moment. It disturbed me greatly. I gritted my teeth, not knowing what was next. My body started to shiver. Elle, I love your taste, I need to taste more of you. Thomas, my body betrayed me, I was losing the war now and had no reinforcements. Jesus, as I listened to Elle, I was shocked. This was unbelievable. My stomach churned, and I felt like I was going to vomit. I thought I knew where things were going but didn't know if I wanted to hear what happened next. I needed to come so badly. Are you okay, Thomas? Elle asked with real concern in her voice. I think so, Elle, but this story is taking turns that I do not like, and I am not sure I want to hear what comes next. From how things are going with you and Robert, the next part will greatly impact how things stand with us. I am genuinely concerned about what happens from here on. I stated, sincerely worried about what came next. Thomas, I need to finish the story so you will understand everything. I hope I am not hurting you too badly, but everything I am telling you is the truth and how it all happened. You know I could never lie to you. I love you too much to do that. So please let me finish. Elle begged. Go ahead, Elle. I surrendered to my perverted curiosity and desire to know everything, even as bad as it would be. Robert, I am so sorry. You have done all this, expecting us to go together. I have had a wonderful time, but we cannot go. And I cannot allow that, no way, that cannot happen. The look on Robert's face was one of great disappointment. He was defeated. He knew that I was yours, Thomas, and I was sure that some part of what Robert was doing was to get over on you by taking me away from you. It was that realization that built my resolve. I was never going to be his prize and your cheating wife. But I felt that I should do something to relieve the pressure we were both feeling. And that would give Robert a memory and nothing more. It was a wicked thing to do, but it was the lesser of the evils that could happen. I knew you would be terribly angry about all that had happened, but this might be easier for you to accept. I told Robert, I want to give you something more to remember this night. There will be no touching or kissing, and once we finish, you and I will be done forever. What Elle had suggested shocked me, but I realized that she had figured out the only way to escape any further aggressive moves from Robert. So, I listened as Elle continued. Thomas, there was a look of sadness on Robert's face. He looked dejected and lost at that moment. His dream night was not happening. Though we had a great date. He also finally realized that there was no way I would ever leave you for him, which also crushed him. We were near the airport, so I straightened my dress. Robert, keep as a souvenir of tonight. They are something of mine you could take home and enjoy in privacy. It was the least I could do for him, Thomas. I was extremely nervous as I settled on the seat facing backward, and Robert was on the opposite side. We had an hour to play before we landed, or longer if Robert wanted more time and had the pilot fly around. I didn't want that. I wanted this to be over. I teased him, trying to end this. I leaned forward and kissed Robert softly for the last time. We sat back and cleaned ourselves with some handy wipes. A little while later, the pilot announced we were landing, so we quickly dressed. Once we landed, Robert brought me home. We did not kiss or even touch each other. Then he left, agreeing we would talk about playing bridge together, but that was it. Elle sat back and looked at me. Thomas, I know I was a very bad wife, and I probably don't deserve to be your wife any longer. I know I put myself in a terrible position. I succeeded in preventing that, but what I did was terrible, and I am so ashamed. I love you, Thomas, and only you. I have decided I will have nothing more to do with Robert outside of my legal business, no bridge. No lunches, or anything unless you are with me. Please forgive me. I will find some way to make it up to you if you allow me to. I had listened to Elle's full story. I was unhappy with what I had heard. Elle had lied to me and had not told me the whole truth earlier, but now she had confessed to everything. I realized that Elle was a smart woman. She had done what she had to do to defuse that night. I knew I loved Elle even though she had cheated on me many times in her head and with some of what Elle had actually done. We will have to work hard together to get through this mess, and we are strong enough to do that. Elle looked at me, begging for a response. I sat for a minute, letting her stew in her mess. Then spoke. Okay, Elle, I will accept your story so far. I can partially forgive you for that mess you got yourself into. I want to know what has happened since the Atlanta night trip. That was a week ago. What was today all about, shopping and going out with Robert tonight? Elle looked away and took a deep breath. Thomas, nothing has happened since Atlanta. I had not seen or talked to Robert until Tuesday when he called and told me he wanted to see me. I told Robert clearly that we could never do what we did on the Atlanta trip or anything else. We could only be friends, possibly bridge partners, and continue the closing business as usual. Robert told me he understood and had a business proposition for me. He said we needed to go out that night and work out the details. I thought he was playing me, so I declined. Then, this morning, he showed up with a thick envelope at my office. He just walked right in, interrupting a call I was on, and handed it to me. He was very direct and stated, Elle, I need you in this deal. Please read this over and meet me at the mall food court for lunch. You will understand why when you read what is in the envelope. Then he just turned and left. Thomas. Robert confused me. I had no idea what was going on. I closed my door and opened the envelope. The first document was a contract between Raymond Corporation and my law firm for us to be his exclusive closing attorney. The next document was a letter attached to a second agreement. The letter explained that Robert was offering me a partner position in a big housing development company he had put together. I was shocked. We had never discussed this or anything like it or the other agreement. I thought Robert was working another angle, trying to take me from you again. It really pissed me off. I know he is your biggest competitor, and you dislike him even more now. I wasn't sure what you would think of these deals. It looked like both deals were big opportunities and would require me to spend considerable time with him. I knew that was what he wanted, so he could wear me down. Financially they both looked very lucrative. But if you did not agree with either, I would not do them. I decided to meet Robert for lunch, hear his proposal, and make it clear that I would never sleep with him regardless of our business deal. Then I would come home, tell you all about it, and you and I would discuss it and decide together what I should do. Thomas, I met Robert at the food court. We had a sandwich, and he explained both deals. He told me I could do one or both, it was my choice. Elle, you know that I like you very, very much. I also know you are devoted to Thomas. I want to apologize to you for the whole Atlanta trip. It was wrong of me to try to seduce you like that. It was so wrong trapping you into doing what we did on the helicopter. It was very wrong. I know we both enjoyed it, but it should never have happened and will never happen again. I cherish your friendship and our business arrangement. I don't want to do anything to hurt you, our relationship, or Thomas and your marriage. I truly apologize. These 2 business proposals I am making to you are something I think you and Johnny can live with. I know we are competitors, but that should not stop our arrangements. As for you, being my exclusive closing attorney is just good business, and we can do that with no problem. Your company will close every deal we sell from now on. That is a considerable number of weekly closings, and it may force you to hire another attorney or 2. The development deal is a little more complicated. There are me and 2 other investment partners. You would be the 4th partner. They had a 30% share between them, and you and I have the rest. You will have a 25% share, and I will have a 45% share. We are all putting up financial equity, but you would not be required to make any capital investment, just sweat equity. You would close all the sales at your normal rates but receive no cash payments for those services until your equity position has been earned. All the details are in the agreement. You will be a fully vested partner from day one. Once your partnership value has been earned, you will receive your normal closing fees for all future sales. There are many more details in the full agreement that you, Thomas, and your attorney should review and agree with. Thomas, these are great opportunities, and I hope you will agree to them. I told Robert that first I had to discuss it with you before anything could happen. I also needed to meet the other partners to see if I was comfortable working with them. Robert pulled out his phone and made a couple of calls. He set up a dinner meeting with the 2 partners for tonight. Then Robert said, Elle, I want you to look radiant tonight, so let's go shopping. I need to buy you a dress. So, we went shopping, and Robert bought me the complete outfit lying on the floor. Thomas, I realize now I handled this all wrong with you. I told you I was going on a date, which was incorrect. It was just a dinner meeting with the investors. I never expected that you would react like you did. But now I understand that the word date is toxic and meant something different than I meant it to. I should have never said that. I also reacted badly to your reaction and got mad at you, so I just clammed up, and that made you even madder. I was way too elusive and not acting normally, add to that my being absent all day and not responding to your calls and texts. Then you learned that Robert was my new bridge partner, and we had been in Palm Beach together. You just put all the wrong pieces together, pieces I had fed you unknowingly. Elle stopped and looked at me. I was watching her. I saw no odd movements or gestures, so I believed her. Thomas, things got crazy, and I understand now that I made it seem like I was stepping out on you when I wasn't. I just wanted to meet these men and decide whether I wanted to do business with them before I told you about it. I knew you would not like me doing anything with Robert. That is why I had not told you he was my bridge partner. When you reacted like you did, accusing me of having an affair, I was shocked, and you pissed me off. I was hurt that you would even think I could do that. I have never given you any reason to think that I would cheat. I realized I did not handle any of this the right way. I also realized that what Robert and I had done in the past 5 weeks was all wrong and that somehow you had found out about Salmore all of it, and that was what had you so mad. I know I should have told you about Robert before tonight's dinner. Then none of this would have ever happened. I also know what I did with Robert since he became my new partner was so wrong, and I hate myself for it. Thomas, I hope that you do not hate me. Elle finished. I had heard all of it. I was disgusted by all of it. I hated every word I had heard, so now it was my turn to level the field and tell Elle what I felt about her escapades. Part 3, Surprising Truth.